President Biden visited Nevada, talking to a group of supporters at a campaign office in Reno. He highlighted his accomplishments and goals of reducing healthcare costs. Before heading to Las Vegas and Arizona, he told the crowd that Nevada is a crucial state to hold on to the White House.
Last week, Donald Trump and I clinched the nominations. We're going to beat him again.
He's the worst president we've ever had, and I'm looking forward to November 5th. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Today, Donald Trump voted in the Florida primary election at a polling place near his Mar-a-Lago club. The former president has already clinched enough delegates to secure the Republican nomination for president, but he is expected to expand his lead with today's primaries. So we'll be watching the numbers for you as they come in throughout the night for Illinois and the other states holding their primary elections today as well. We'll bring you those results as soon as we get them. Reporting live in the control center, Patrick Fazio, NBC 5 News. Back to you.
All right, thanks so much, Patrick. Now, one of the most closely followed races tonight is the vote for or against a real estate transfer tax.
It is called by the supporters Bring Chicago Home. Critics are calling it the mansion tax. NBC 5's Lexi Suter joining us live from the newsroom now with more details on this ballot question. Lexi.
Good evening, Marianne and Marian. A lot of talk about the possibility of a tax increase for some Chicagoans. That's if this referendum gets enough votes tonight. So what does ballot question 1 really mean? Well, essentially, it's a tax increase on properties sold for more than $1 million. The money raised would go towards supporting the city's homeless population. That's some 70,000 people. This referendum has been in the works for years and has been pushed by Mayor Brandon Johnson, a big supporter of the real estate transfer tax. Now, other supporters say the city needs a designated revenue stream to take care of the homeless. But critics say a tax increase on million-dollar properties will impact more than the rich. It won't just be corporate landlords paying a higher fee, but that fee could be passed down to renters, having an impact on ordinary Chicagoans and the city's economy. Take a listen.
$1 million doesn't buy what it used to in the first instance, and a lot of the housing stock in Chicago is multifamily buildings. Regular people live in those multifamily buildings, and if the cost is higher for the turnover and the transacting in those buildings, what will happen is what always happens in those types of settings. The cost gets passed down.
Chicago, we've got multiple generation of people who've been experiencing homelessness. We've got, almost 20,000 CPS students who don't have their own home. Government is here to solve these big problems. This is a path of a solution that we found in order to create $100 million in revenue.
And with the polls just now closing, we will be seeing some of those results roll in momentarily. Marianne and Marian, I'm going to send it back to you.
Thanks so much, Lexi. We appreciate it.
Yes, let's get started on
the analysis. We want to know what you guys think. First, let's kick it off with the presidential. I mean, it's already been clinched by the time it gets here. What are your thoughts about where we stand right now? Let's start with you, Del Marie.
Well, what I would like to see is how many people actually wrote in the word Gaza in terms of being non-committal, because that was something that they were calling for following up on what happened in Michigan. And so I think that'll be very interesting.
Could it be that is going to show that if in Illinois we see a Gaza vote, that is a warning sign to President Biden?
Well, that's the whole purpose of it, is to send a warning shot to him that, you look at Michigan, you look at Wisconsin, you saw what the margin of vote was for Hillary Clinton that she lost by. And, here in 3 weeks, they were hoping to get 10,000, and they got 100,000 in Michigan. So that's sending a loud and clear message that you don't want us to ignore this race.
Interesting, though, Michigan has a large Muslim population, not as large here. Rufus, what do you think about, former President Trump? He has made his way back to the top of the ticket, and so we are dealing with him as an electorate again. What do you think about his being back in this race?
I think it's amazing that he is back in this race. I think given all the things that have happened, and first, to lose as he did, very, very often you don't see the candidate return, but he never went away. You see former presidents kind of go aside and do whatever they're doing, but he never went away and continued to push this issue of election interference, continued to push the issue that he won, and continue to bring people along with all of that. And given the indictments, given the insurrection, given all these things, fascinating that he's still there, just amazing. And we start to really look at things and think about how there's this constant conversation of no one being above the law. I think we can't say that anymore. Donald Trump is above the law.
All right,
and so much of what's happened is just very different than it could be.
We got to bring it locally now,
Yeah,
to the Bring Chicago Home. It has been talked about in court, out on the ballot. Was it going to be counted? It's on the ballot. What about it? Is it a mansion tax that's fair? What do you think, Delmarie?
Well, as a progressive, this is something we've been fighting for a long time. And so it's finally on the ballot, and we want to see if people will support it, because there has to be something done for the homeless population in Chicago. I mean, it's growing exponentially ever since COVID, and so there has to be a dedicated revenue source.
It's trusting the mayor and the city council. Is there enough accountability built into this?
Well, that's one of the things that we will have to make sure happens. I mean, when it comes back to city council, if in fact it passes, then city council, that's their responsibility to make sure that in fact there are guardrails in terms of how this money is dispensed.
One of the critiques of this is that it could potentially just halt development, that developers are not going to want to take on this, which is a really, really large increase in what the cost would be, about 166%, I think, in something over $1 million. What do you think, Rufus? Do you think it'll tell?
I think there's so much about this that people don't understand. And I don't think it was clearly articulated. I think all the things that got it into court, and when it came out, there's still pieces that people don't understand. This is on places that are sold over $1 million. And so, first of all, you got to sell it. And then it's got to be over $1 million. And then it goes into whatever the different pieces are where we look at how we regulate it. Those things were not made clear. And fact is, it's about 94% of the properties that are still going to be under that $1 million threshold.
And they would have a cut.
Right. So it is going to be mostly on corporate properties. Will they stop them from developing? I don't think so, but it's a good line to have when you're trying to keep it from happening.
They certainly have been working to get it on the ballot for a long, long time.
Yes, they have.
Yeah, this is, and I'll just say this is one. We talked about homelessness before we started getting the immigrants being sent up by Greg Abbott.
Good point.
That's a good
and
point.
now there's a solution to try and deal with that, and then we get to all these other things. When at the end of the day, we still have this huge homelessness problem.
All right, we'll talk more about that as we start to see the results come in and see if it actually does pass. NBC News has called for both President Biden and former President Donald Trump, their respective races. So Illinois has gone the way it was expected. It was already clinched for them, and Illinois is following suit. All right, so there are also several other key races that we're monitoring both in Congress and in Springfield.
Kate Chappell, she has more on the ones to watch tonight.
Marianne and Marion, we have three races we're following at this hour. Let's start in Congress and the 4th district, where incumbent Jesus Chuy Garcia is facing a challenger in the primary for the first time since 2019. Chicago Alderman Ray Lopez challenging his seat. Now, Chuy is running for a 4th term in office in the 4th district, which serves the southwest part of Chicago, also spans some south and southwest suburbs. He's a known progressive. He ran for mayor twice, including forcing Rahm Emanuel to a runoff back in 2015. He came in 4th place in the first round of last year's mayoral race. Now, both are running as Democrats, but are far apart on several key issues. Lopez often takes a more conservative tone on issues. He serves Chicago's 15th ward. Now, the two disagree on a lot, including how to handle the city's migrant crisis, the Israel-Hamas war, even a ban on TikTok. Here's a quick look at where things stand in that race. Not much traction there yet, but of course, we're going to keep watching that race. Now we want to take you downstate to the 12th district, where incumbent Representative Mike Bost has held the seat since 2015. He's a 5-term Republican. However, this one's interesting because he's facing a primary challenge from a name you will certainly recognize, Darren Bailey. He won the Republican primary for governor in 2022, of course, lost to J.B. Pritzker. Bailey prides himself on being a 3rd-generation family farmer. He's a former state senator. And it's interesting because despite an endorsement from Donald Trump in the gubernatorial election, Trump is actually supporting the incumbent here, Representative Bost. This race could be seen as a measure of Trump's clout. It's getting some national attention, certainly. Bost is the favorite here, a lot more campaign cash. Let's take a look at where things stand. And as predicted, Bost is in the lead. Of course, things could change. It's still early, but here's where things stand right now. Finally, we want to get to Springfield, where incumbent Mary Flowers is fighting to keep her seat in the 31st district, which stretches from Chicago's Auburn Gresham neighborhood to Hickory Hills. She is the longest-serving African-American legislator in the General Assembly. She's been in office since 1985. However, It could come down to the supporter of her opponent in this race, Chris Welch. He is supporting Democrat Michael Crawford. Crawford is a campus dean at the Chicago School. Previously, he worked for the City Colleges of Chicago. Welch removed Flowers from her leadership post over allegations of some abusive behavior and some controversial comments she made about Welch staffers. Let's take a quick look at where things stand in this race. And you see Crawford has a significant lead at this hour. But we will continue tracking these races throughout the night. Look for full results coming up tonight at 10. For now, I'll send it back to you.
All right, thanks so much, Kay. Just 11% in on that last one in the 31st, but what an interesting race.
Yes, and the money spent.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Oh, my goodness. What do you make of that? Chris Welch, why Mary Flowers targeted this time, Del?
Well, a lot of the women who are in Springfield are very upset because they see this as a message to them that if you step out of line, you'll be next. And so they're taking this very personally in terms of what he's doing to Mary. Because, as she said in an interview, I think, Michael Madigan and her had differences, but he never targeted her. And for him to put $1.2 million into an unknown person is just really sending a message to everybody that it's not business as usual.
And Chris Welch actually did support her before, but was very upset with her over something she said about a staffer, which she didn't even deny. She didn't even back away from that comment about saying he looked like Hitler or something like that. And he sends this long letter explaining how upset he was. What are your thoughts about Chris Welch's actions?
You have to wonder if there's more to it than just what's in that letter. And there was things that we saw from just a year ago or less where he was very complimentary to her. And so to come to this point, you wonder there has to be something deeper behind that, something deeper that maybe there's some assault upon leadership. She's been there longer than anyone else. And so when you start to see these changes and you've been used to some other person being there in some other way that it's been, somebody's establishing some level of leadership. And the assault upon that becomes problematic.
All right, let's talk about Congress, because once you get into Congress, sometimes you stay for years and years and years. Chuy Garcia has not necessarily been there forever, but he, after running for mayor twice, we have his numbers right now. He is leading.
And he is leading.
What about that, though? Ray Lopez was trying to tap into those who were angry about the migrant situation, felt as if Garcia had not done enough, had not been outspoken enough. It doesn't look as if, well, it's still early, but can Ray Lopez pull off an upset?
I don't think in this environment that Ray Lopez was going to beat Chuy Garcia. I mean, Chuy Garcia has been almost at every level of government. So he has name recognition. And as you said, he's run for mayor twice. So for an alderman who really is not known beyond his ward, I don't care how many issues he is anti the mayor on, most people don't know him outside of his ward. So that was a big leap for him to take on someone like Chuy Garcia, who has been amassing power by mentoring other progressives.
Yeah, he has his own machine and everything. What are your thoughts about Ray Lopez?
Yeah.
He's been, he started to run for mayor, dropped out pretty quickly. He's starting to look a little bit like a perennial.
He's been looking he's against everything that the mayor's for, quite frankly. He was against everything against Mayor Lightfoot. He was against everything I don't know where he stands with this mayor, but he did consider running for mayor. And clearly he is ambitious, but you've got to kind of pick the spots in which you're going to go. This may not be the time to go after, clearly it may not be the time to go after Chuy Garcia for this seat, depending on what it is that you want to do. But he's been pretty outspoken on a number of things, very conservative on a lot of things, and pushing hard on those things. I think he just may not find the space.
I guess we're going to see if the Democratic Party in Chicago and Cook County is progressive, or is it, pulling back from that? And progressive, does that mean socialist, is another question.
No, it doesn't mean socialist. It means being progressive means progress for all. That does not necessarily mean socialism.
All right. Up next, we're going to get, I'm sure, more into that from our progressive panelist right here, of course. Up next, a look at the Cook County State's Attorney race. Who will replace Kim Foxx? This is really the big race to watch. Stay with us.